or cheers to the end. You'll have an opportunity to do that, and you'll also have an opportunity to meet with the candidates afterwards. We appreciate everyone's cooperation as we maintain a respectful and informative event. So just a few more specifics about the format. Every candidate will have 3 minutes to do their opening and closing statement, and for the questions, they will have 2 minutes, and there will be a signal, there will be a yellow flag when they have 30 seconds left, and a red piece of paper when they have to stop their answer. Let's go ahead and get started. We do have another candidate who is on her way. She'll be here very soon. But let's go ahead and start out with Delegate Cole for your 3-minute introduction, opening statement.
Well, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to try that again. I'm a preacher. I like when y'all talk back to me. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
A whole lot better. I appreciate it. Thank you so much to the Stafford County branch of the NAACP and Madam President for hosting this wonderful event and having the opportunity for us to share our views and our plans for some of us for being re-elected and elected to the House of Delegates. I don't have to share with you the pain and the issues that many of us here in Stafford County are dealing with right now. Stafford County is a great place to live, first of all. And specifically, since I'm talking to the NAACP, I was encouraged to find out a couple of months ago, as I was introducing legislation for first-time homebuyers, that for Stafford County, it's one of the few counties in the entire United States where the black household income is higher than the white household income. Stafford County is one of the few counties in the entire United States where black wealth is greater the county is greater for black people to live in. They perform well. They do better here in Stafford County. So that's a great thing to know. But yet we still have friends and family members who find it expensive to rent homes, to buy homes, or if they work in Stafford County, it's hard to afford to live in Stafford County unless you work up the road. And now for some of our friends who work up the road for the federal government, they are now losing those jobs, and they still have to find out what they're going to do in the area. And so when the federal government does not stand up and do what it's supposed to do, it's incumbent upon the state government to stand up and to support and help the people on this local level and the state level. We have to make sure that we can support our local governments, we can support the people here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that's from every aspect, whether it's jobs, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's transportation. That's also making sure that we have quality world-class education and making sure that we're able to recruit high qualified performing educators and keep them in Stafford County. And I love y'all for not losing some of our educators to Loudoun and Fairfax and some of the northern counties, which we have some great educators who are in the room right now who live here or work up the road, only because we're not able to pay our teachers the salary that they deserve and that they need, right? And so there's a lot that's going on and a lot that can be done. And so I'm looking forward to just speaking with you all and talking about the issues so that hopefully I can earn your vote and become your delegate again for a third term. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, NAACP and the Stafford community. My name is Stacy Carroll. I'm the House of Delegate candidate for the 64th District that represents Stafford County. I am not a politician, have never tried to be, never desired to be. I have simply been doing what I consider to be taking care of my part of the county, specifically serving foster children, specifically teens. I was recognized as Foster Mom of the Year last year for my work in doing so. My day job, I'm an accountant, CPA. I audit the federal government's financial statements. We provide recommendations on how to become more efficient and get rid of the waste. I am a member of the National Guard, 19 years. I retire this coming December. I'm excited about that. I have kids in college, kids in public school, and a child in daycare. I am running for House of Delegates because I believe we need people that will serve the county and provide bridges and not build walls. Without question, we are at a point in life to where specifically Stafford County is at a turning point. I love Stafford County. All the great accolades that Delegate Josh Cole just spoke about, I wholeheartedly agree with. But as children, as a mother of children here in the county, I would also say I want something else fun to do in Stafford County other than the Cavalier. And I grew up every weekend going to the skating rink. And I know how to skate like Sweetness, so let's be clear about that. But I want to be sure that we are partnering on the local level, specifically from the state perspective, to get things done. We're not pointing fingers, but we're coming up with real solutions and not pointing out a specific segment or group such as veterans or various other communities as to be the problem. As Stafford, like myself, I chose Stafford as my home. I moved here nearly 10 years ago. I love Stafford. And I simply want Stafford to prosper with a new direction. My name is Stacy Carroll.
Thank you very much. And Delegate Mondun King has just arrived right on time.
Afternoon.
So right now we're just doing our 3-minute opening statements.
Good afternoon. How are you all?
We're good.
Well, I'm Candi Mondun King. I represent Stafford and Prince William County in the Virginia House of Delegates for the last 4 years. It has been a pleasure to represent our community through some of the difficult times of the pandemic, where we ensured there was access to COVID vaccines for those who wanted them, where we were preparing our students to navigate through the pandemic, until today, where we just left session and passed one of the largest education budgets in history, where we've been able to make important investments in our infrastructure. And part of my role in that has been the focus on maternal health, particularly Black maternal health. And this past year, I was proud to join my colleague, Delegate Cole, in passing the Virginia Momnibus, which is the first of its kind in the nation to put over $10 million into maternal health. And we just launched some of our first programs, which are focused on maternal mental health and helping moms throughout the Commonwealth, because in Virginia, too many moms, especially Black and brown moms, are dying within the first 5 years. So we saw an issue and we decided to put our money where our mouth is and actually do something about it. And that is the energy that I've always brought to the General Assembly. We see a problem, we don't just talk about it, we actually fix it. And that it has honestly been a pleasure to represent Stafford along with Delegate Cole and Senator McPike and so many leaders, but we have so much work to do. Recently, I found out that over 20,000 people in Stafford will be impacted by the big ugly bill. They'll lose health care, they'll lose access to food assistance, and as a state delegate, we have to decide how are we going to step up to fill that gap. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running, because let me tell you, as a mom of 3, I have other things I could be doing. But I'm running because our community needs a leader who is not just going to talk about solutions, but actually get things done. And I've proven that in Richmond, and I look forward to going back if this community decides to send me.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for those opening statements. So let's get started talking about voting rights and democracy. So these are obviously topics that are on people's minds because of what's happening in the federal government. You know, I actually did some focus groups with some younger women, some newer voters last year. One of the things they said is that they still wanted voting to be easier. And to me, I think, okay, so when I first started voting, there was one day. You know, there was not even mail-in voting, there was no early voting. But look at the progress that we've made. So I'd love to hear from you all, what will you do to protect and expand access to voting in Virginia? And I'll start with Ms. Carroll.
Hold it. I gotta make sure I do hold it. Without question, voting is absolutely necessary. My father was born in 1927 in Midland City, Alabama, and he always reminded me of the importance of voting. When I was a very young voter, he would often say, don't ever say, because I told him one day, I don't like any of the candidates, and he told me don't ever say that to him ever again in life. And to look at voting as me being a pregnant woman, 8 months pregnant, standing at a bus stop, it's pouring down raining, and there are 2 buses. I better make a decision to get on a bus, get on the bus that is going closest to my destination, and walk the rest of the way. But I get on a bus because not getting on the bus is not an option. Without question, we have to make sure that we support the people in our community and their various trials and or circumstances in life, depending on a person's work schedule, physical mobility and or accessibility. We have to ensure that we provide the right to vote and accessibility to vote to all of them. Once elected, I will join my colleagues currently to my right and those down in Richmond in ensuring that all people have the right to vote. We know that there's a constitutional amendment that's up for vote this coming November as it relates to felons who have then been released and re-entered into society. Once they have paid their debts to society, the bill would allow them to have their voting rights restored. I, without question, believe in second chances and third chances and fourth chances. And if someone has done their due and paid their debt, then they should be wholeheartedly restored and have the ability to acclimate into society. So once elected, I will do just that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question. I'm honored to sit on the House Committee on Privileges and Elections, and I don't take that honor lightly because every day we are fighting in that committee to make sure that folks have access to the ballot box and that their right to vote is protected. As I quickly glance throughout the room, I can probably see about maybe 5 people in the room whose right to vote are absolutely guaranteed in the United States Constitution. Maybe 5 people, because you have to own land. If you don't own land, then no. And constantly, each and every one of us in the room, our rights to vote are merely amendments to the Constitution. Let that sink in. And every so often, the Voting Rights Act has to be renegotiated and passed again. And I don't think we realize the severity of that issue. Where we're now sitting in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where we're blessed and honored to have people who are fighting, where less than 5 years ago, we were one of the worst states in the nation for voting rights, but we've now moved up to the top 10, where we have 45 days of no excuse early voting, where we have same-day voting, same-day registration for voting now, where you're now able to go and vote and have conversations with people and talk about it, where people wish they had the ability to get access to the ballot like some of us do, right? Where you can now mail in your ballot, or we have a permanent absentee ballot list, where if you may be a senior or someone who may be disabled to get into the ballot, you're automatically mailed in a ballot now. And so we want to make sure that people have access, and as a person who's been fighting on the P&E committee, it is my duty to keep fighting for that. We have a constitutional amendment that's coming before the General Assembly, as Stacy mentioned, the automatic restoration of rights. We want to see people who are returning back home have their rights restored. And so if we have the ability to send that to the ballot in the midterm elections, when you vote for the midterms, you'll have the ability to vote on that as well. And so I'm committed to making sure we protect that.
Thank you.
I previously served on P&E. It was one of my favorite committees. You know, we talk about first generation college graduates, but some of us are first generation voters. For some of us, our parents and grandparents never had the opportunity to fully exercise their rights to vote. And so it is a privilege and an honor to be in the General Assembly. But I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. If you care about people having access to the ballot, you will not continue what the Youngkin administration has done. Just yesterday, calling in federal organizations and groups to fearmonger and create this cast around the safety of Virginia's voting in a way that has never been done before. And I can guarantee you that Winsome Sears will continue more of the same. So if you care about people having access to vote, then we need to elect different people. What has happened over the last 4 years has been truly un-American. The right to vote has been demonized. The governor has purged people from the rolls. He has continued to cast doubt on whether Virginia's election system is safe or not. And all of this is in response to the fact that even though we voted for him, and that was valid. Nothing else is valid. So we have to do something different. We have to bring in people who believe that we should have more access to vote, not less, and not create these barriers for those who want to vote.
Thank you. So for our next question, we're going to start with you, Delegate Mondun King, on data centers. So given that data centers appear inevitable in Stafford County, how will you ensure that they provide real community benefits such as tax relief, job creation, or infrastructure investment, rather than leaving residents with only environmental and quality of life costs?
Thank you for that. So I represent Prince William County, which has been at the heart of sort of the data center debate, although not in my particular part of Prince William County. I think that that's really a question for localities to consider as they do any development, whether it is data center, whether it's housing, whether it is Amazon, procurement, distribution centers. What is the cost-benefit analysis is what local officials need to ask themselves. Because at the state level, I'm responsible for ensuring that our utility costs are affordable, and a lot of these large-scale projects, whether they are data centers or other industries, are driving costs up. So what I've done as a member of the Labor and Commerce Committee, and I'm actually the subcommittee co-chair for our Integrated Resource Planning Committee, is I'm looking to the future of what clean energy looks like. If localities decide they want data centers, then those data centers need to generate clean energy, not spew off more fumes into our communities. So as localities are considering these data centers and other projects, they should be requiring these companies, just like we do with residential and commercial, to bring benefits to the community and not just harm. I will also say, and I feel like it needs to be said, that there's a lot of misinformation about data center development and what that means for the environment. And I ask people to be honest about those conversations, because in a lot of communities, data centers are driving jobs, they're driving tax revenue. I saw a county that went from in the red every year to now they have a 22% debt surplus. So what can that mean for communities? I think we need to have an honest conversation about.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I want to associate my comments with my wonderful colleague over here. That it really is a local government's decision, but as a job for us as the General Assembly, I think absolutely we can pass legislation to say, hey, if you want to bring these data centers to your community, we can start by one, protecting our water, making sure that our energy is protected, our ratepayers are protected. And then let's also have that discussion about where data centers are being put so that they're not so close to neighborhoods and people who live near them. And I agree, there is a lot of misinformation that's being put out there. And so there was one data center who's coming to Stafford County. And I had some conversations. I said, I want to do a tour. So they took me to a tour of one of their locations in Manassas. And as I'm driving up to it, I had in my mind it was going to be loud. Y'all hear that? That's what I heard. I didn't hear nothing. So I parked, and I got out. Still didn't hear anything. Then they took me through the tour. They showed me the different things that they had, and they said, oh, and by the way, because we're building a location in Stafford, we have committed to Stafford County that we will not touch potable water. We will also reinvest and rebuild the stormwater treatment facility for Stafford County, and we will build a brand new potable treatment facility in Stafford County. I said, what? Because I'm being told, y'all using the water, y'all using the river water. They said, we have promised not to tap into that source. And so you also have to ask all these questions. And I know we have different town halls that are happening, and so make sure you're pressing and you're asking these questions. But all politics are local. This is why it's important to have the right people on the board of supervisors so they're doing the right negotiating so that they can protect you, your neighborhood, your water, and it's our job to protect your rates as we fight for you in the General Assembly.
Thank you.
I'll just add a few words to what my future colleagues have said to my right. That ugly word that nobody likes to talk about, diversify. And I say that because I am an accountant. So as I talk to my clients about their money and how to manage their money, I always tell them to diversify, whether that be 401k, mutual funds, or anything. Statistics are very important to me. About 70% of Stafford County's tax revenue are from the actual residents of Stafford County via property tax. We have to support the localities in providing that guidance should they decide to diversify their revenue, whether it be data centers or any other particular topic, as it relates to how they intend to expand out the economy here locally. From a state perspective, we can provide guidance, laws, and regulations on how to properly do that, whether it be sizing, location, various resources, and ensuring that the energy costs are not passed directly on to the constituents. We have to ensure that we provide that level of oversight because Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, is considered the data center capital of the world. So if we have a data center here coming to Stafford, Virginia, we have to ensure that we provide our localities. And again, I think our board of supervisors, they're part-time employees, they're doing various things. There are a lot of things from a different perspective at the state level that as we know and better understand and have that knowledge from our northern counties who already have data centers present, we can be able to provide that level of insight from a state perspective.
Thank you very much. So let's continue talking about economic development and jobs. And Ms. Carroll, you actually talked a little about this in your opening statement. So we'll start with you. What strategies will you advocate for to attract and support small business in Virginia?
Small business in Virginia, specifically Stafford County. I'm an accountant. Everything we do has to make sense. I still believe that 1 + 1 = 2. I know sometimes we live in a world of alternative facts and AI and various things can be manipulated in different forms or fashions. But in order to help drive businesses here in Stafford County, and specifically the Commonwealth, we have to partner with our local officials to actually do the work. We have to ensure that we incentivize them to come and find that happy medium, because the happy medium ain't just us selling out all of our resources and land to attract them, but as well as it being a win-win particular situation. We know without question, in order to have the businesses come, we have to fully invest in our schools. Depending on various job classifications, where I send my children while I go work this job is very important to me. So we have to start by making sure that we attract them by fully funding and investing in our schools so that people will want to bring a headquarters here to Stafford County instead of a manufacturing plant.
Thank you.
Thank you. During our tenure, Delegate King and I, during our tenure in the House of Delegates, we have been able to celebrate the fact that Virginia has been #1 to do business in the United States. And that's because of due policies we've done, not just protecting businesses, but also protecting workers. Because when you have healthy workers who enjoy their jobs and are doing what they're doing, the businesses are going to prosper. But when your workers aren't treated well and your workers aren't healthy, then the businesses are going to suffer. So you have to make sure that workers are treated well in the area that people are working in, and that businesses see that you are honoring and taking care of people. When you are harassing people, when you are harming people, and you create policies that isolate people and harm people, then businesses are not going to come to your state. And so we have seen that under the Youngkin administration, we lost being #1 for business in America because of harmful policies that were enacted, right? And as soon as the Democrats took control, I know this is supposed to be nonpartisan, but as soon as the Democrats took control of the General Assembly again, what happened? We became #1 for business again because of the policies that have been enacted that honors workers, empowers workers, and businesses really understand the fact if workers are healthy and workers feel good where they're working, they're going to do well. We also want to make sure we're supporting the businesses that are already here. I was honored to pass the bill that Governor Youngkin signed this year called the Virginia Step Up Program, which allow high school seniors to graduate high school with a top secret clearance, or a public trust, allowing them to go straight into government contracting work without without a college degree, right? That's $60,000 to $80,000 a year right out of high school. And I assure you, these government contracting agencies, both big and small, are excited to tap into that workforce, right, and bring our kids into a job. But wait, there's more. Not only are they going to get a job making that kind of money, they got continuing education that's a part of their job description too. So they're going to get their college degree covered with that as well. These are the type of policies we are enacting to make sure that businesses come here and that people want to stay living in Stafford County and in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, so that it's the #1 place for business and the #1 place for workers.
Thank you.
So when I was elected in 2021, one of the first bills that I passed created a process to get more small women and minority-owned businesses into the state pipeline. And that is what we're hearing from small businesses across the Commonwealth, that there are opportunities that small businesses can meet, and they're often left out of the conversation in favor of bigger companies. And so if I'm reelected, I plan to continue that work by creating more pipelines for small women and minority-owned businesses to do work with the state, and to also help those businesses that have been devastated by the actions of the federal government. We have so many small businesses that have been harmed by the Doge Bros and cuts at the federal level that could be helping us meet some of the needs here in Virginia, and we need to find a way to make sure we're supporting them.
Thank you. And so just to follow up on that, I'm going to start with Delegate Mondun King. How do you plan to ensure economic growth in rural and suburban areas without displacing longtime residents?
Thank you for that question. This is a good one. So I don't represent a very rural community, but again, I am on the Labor and Commerce Committee. I do work a lot on energy issues and utility issues, and I think that we need to use the technology and emerging technologies and opportunities that are coming forward. Data centers aren't the only new concept that can bring revenue and jobs into communities. We have rural communities every day banning clean energy projects, utility scale solar that can lower the cost for all of us without damaging our environment, without creating health problems. And we have rural localities saying no. What does that mean? That means that we're pushed into old, dirty modes of utility, right? We have gas peaker plants that are mainly in Black and brown communities, and we have people who would rather sit back on their plantation and enjoy their view than to have clean energy projects which generate revenue in their community. So if they would rather our communities suck down gas fumes while their community gets to enjoy clean air, and oh, by the way, they get to enjoy the solar on their own homes. So we have to take advantage. I see states, Iowa, taking advantage of clean energy projects. And there is a way to not displace folks, but give them the opportunity to gain revenue and jobs in their community through clean energy.
Thank you.
I'm going to harp my cord again on the Step Up program for procurement, because we have government contract agencies that are all throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, and some who are in rural Virginia. And this would allow students in some of those rural parts who don't have to move to Maryland, who don't have to move to Charlotte, to stay right at home, partner up with these agencies, and they'll be able to find a good paying job right where they are. But I also want to turn our attention to agriculture, right? Because I do represent White Oak, which is a rural part of Stafford County. And while I don't represent a rural part of Spotsylvania County, I still have Spotsylvania, which is a rural part of the state. And we have so many different farmers out there, and they have so many different great technology. But we have to make sure that we're investing in farmers. We have to make sure that we're investing in the agriculture. And we need to make sure that we're supporting them. And that's why I fully support two pieces of legislation called the Food as Medicine program, which allow people who are like on Medicaid and SNAP and different things like that to utilize that money to tap into food as an actual prescription so that they can get healthy foods to feed off of. Where they're getting that fresh produce from? The farmers in their backyards. That's how we support that part of our agriculture, that part of our economy, right? But we also want to support food to table programs in our school. We want our kids to eat healthy. We want them to be strong. We want to make sure that they're eating the right food. Let's tap into these farmers who are in our communities by boosting our economy, by making sure these school divisions can tap into these farmers and bring that fresh produce right out of their backyard and put it right into Falmouth Elementary, right into Stafford High School, right into North Stafford High School, right? And that's another way we boost our local economy, by making sure our people in our backyard are healthy and clean, right? And that's another thing that we have to make sure. What are we doing to make sure our economies are boosted locally while keeping our people at home if they want to stay at home?
So District 64 is a little different. We have an entire district that will be considered rural. That's Heartwood. They understood the commute when they purchased out there. We have to make sure that we're building the bridges to better understand. Without question, throughout the entire process, we need to bolster the economy. And I say that specifically because Heartwood is more rural, but I think there's maybe one restaurant in the Heartwood area, right? So then becomes well, how do we bring economic development to Heartwood so that as a resident of Heartwood, or specifically the 64th district, I don't have to necessarily drive to Prince William County or Fredericksburg in order to enjoy a nice meal out with my family. But it starts with education and actually building the bridge and discussing various ways that both people can come together. And I say that because from rural America, there's a perspective. And from us here being in the suburban part of Stafford County, there's a perspective that we bring. And I think most times when everybody's trying to push on their specific areas, nobody's listening.
Thank you. So let's start with Delegate Cole for this next question. You mentioned education a couple times. So what is your position on increasing teacher pay and improving retention?
Thank you. I think I've had the great opportunity, the 4 sessions that I've been in Richmond, we have had legislation that has attempted to increase teacher salary to the national average. Our colleague from Alawite County, Delegate Darius Clark, has championed that piece of legislation for the past 2 years. We voted, I think we've both been chief co-patrons on the piece of legislation to make sure we could raise that salary for our educators. But I think it's also key, it's not also about pay. Yes, we want to make sure that they're paid well, but we also want to make sure that they have the autonomy to teach our students the right way. Because there are educators who are here teaching only to test. Our students learn the information, they test, and then they forget the information, right? And so we have to make sure that our students are taught well, and who knows how to teach them more than the parents and the educators who spend time with them every single day. I know we honor the administrators in the room, we appreciate your hard work and everything that you did, but our parents and our teachers are the ones who know the most how to make sure their students are receiving the best quality education. And so we need to make sure we are building that bridge again between the parents and the educators, because there are people who are stoking fears and trying to create a division between parents and educators and put them at odds against each other. And we need to build that bridge again. Because I remember when I was growing up at Falmouth Elementary and Drew Middle School and Stafford High School and North Stafford High School, my mother would get on the phone in a minute and call Mr. Leonard and say, what's going on here? Or call Miss Chambers. Now, Miss Chambers, and she was engaged and found out what was going on. And so we want to make sure that our parents and our educators are coming together, building quality education for our students, making sure that our educators are paid well so that we can keep them in Stafford County, and making sure that they feel appreciated for the hard work that they're doing. Because I hear time and time again, they are stuck doing this training, that training, this training, that training, and then they don't even feel appreciated after they get yelled at and cussed out from different parents or different students. I see y'all in here in the room, and y'all see me too. So we have to make sure that our educators feel appreciated.
Thank you so much. Delegate Mondun King.
Thank you. Ditto. I 110% support increasing teacher pay above the national average. And I think it goes hand in hand with the questions about economics, right? As localities are able to gain revenue and they can pay teachers more, give teachers better benefits. But let me just say this. Over the last 48 hours, you have a governor, lieutenant governor, various senators and delegates who are doxing teachers online because they don't agree with them about Charlie Kirk. Now, who is going to go into the classroom every day working hard to support students and our community, the future of our communities every day, and you have your own elected officials going through your social media, targeting you for crazy people to harass you and try to get you fired? As long as we continue to elect these types of people, we will continue to have a problem filling those seats. So across the country, over the last 48 hours, teachers have been fired, they've been targeted. Right here in Virginia, they are posting their LinkedIn and personal information online of teachers and administrators. I want you all to understand how cruel this administration is. I want you to understand that right now, the General Assembly is the only thing standing between Virginia and chaos.
Thank you. Ms. Carroll?
I would echo the sentiments of my future colleagues to my right. The only thing I would add is I would expand the thought from just teachers to also include support staff. When I was in school, I promise you, whether it be the bus driver that ensured I got there, whether it be get on the bus, sit down and shut up, or whether it be the lunch ladies who ensured that I had a nutritious meal, I would consider the MVPs of the schools to be the janitors and or the administration staff, the secretaries that answer the phone, that keep the school running. I think in all of those aspects, when we think about schools, it's not just the teachers, but we need to make sure that we're including the support staff in there as well, whether it be from a behavioral perspective, the personnel that support various educational support services, whether it be IEP or 504s, to make sure that we're moving the school along in that particular capacity. I would add, the only thing I would say to them is that we have to unequivocally support our educators. They spend more time with our children than we do on a daily basis. I'm not quite sure where or when the respect for the profession died, but I would promise to you all that once elected, I will champion that we reinstitute the respect of our educators back to its rightful place. Educators and our support staff aren't perfect. They all make mistakes, and I'm sure that there's various reasons that we're seen in various situations. But generally speaking, I don't know one teacher or support staff that go to school and do what they do just because they hate the children. And we have to make sure that we support them by not just in words, but in our actions.
Thank you. So let's switch to public safety and justice reform. We'll start with you, Delegate Mondun King. How do you plan to address disparities in our justice system, or in justice system, particularly for communities of color?
Thank you for that. I'm also vice chair of the public safety. I've got a lot of jobs for a part-time job. I'm vice chair of the public safety committee, and we see terrible ideas every year come across our desk, and we kill each and every one of them. I think the best way to address public safety is by investing in our communities early and often, right? Some will say the best way, to prevent crime is a good education and a job. And I believe that wholeheartedly, but we also have to ensure that we have a system that is just, that is fair, but is also protecting our communities and keeping everyone safe. I think it starts with having an attorney general who will actually fight the good fights for us and make sure that across the board people are doing their jobs, because that's what the attorney general is supposed to do, the people's attorney. But the biggest hurdle, I think, is trying to ensure that we don't have people in office who will backslide some of the reforms that have been made.
Thank you. Delegate Cole.
Thank you. I think we have seen over the past couple of weeks a particular attack from the Commander-in-Chief on particularly black cities with black leadership, saying that these cities are not safe and that people are at harm's way. But at the same time, these particular black leaders have stepped up in a particular time to clean up these cities, and we have seen crime rates drop, not just because there's a black leader who's the mayor of the city, but because of investing in community resources and things that support our youth. Making sure that there's after-school programs, making sure there's access to jobs, making sure that they have different programs that's available to them. When you know better, you do better. And if you have better access, you can do better things, right? And so it's really important that in this particular race, that we have gone, Virginia has gone a long way from being #1 in the nation from the school to prison pipeline, that we're no longer holding that place, right? But there's particular people in this particular race who want to pass harsher punishment to you because of what's happening in our communities. We know what's happening in our communities because of what we lack in this area. So once we integrate and implement youth programs, after-school programs, and different things in Fredericksburg City, in Spotsylvania County, when the churches are able to step up with after-school programs and things that support our communities, we will start to see that youth have other options besides spending time in the streets and having the streets raise them, but it requires to have the right options and the right opportunities that is being presented to them. And so I'm committed to making sure that we build that partnership, making sure that our law enforcement is seen in our communities as a positive influence, no longer as an enemy like what I grew up with, that they were seen as a positive influence, that we return back to that community policing aspect so that they have trust in the community and the community believes that they can trust them. And there's so many different things that we can look into, that we can tap into and go back into that we have neglected.
So much. Ms. Carroll?
I would start my comment by simply saying, every time I dial 911, I expect either the police officer, fire marshal, and or ambulance to show up to address my emergency. Without question. When I dial 911, I expect a professional to show up and to do their job. There are times in which, unfortunately, in doing their job, it's not done right. I have a personal experience on that. Just came out of from military training. I was dressed in my full military uniform, got a rental car, went over to the elder's house. And where do some of the elders in your family generally stay? Probably in what would be considered the projects. Went inside a couple of houses, said hi to family and friends and cousins, jumped in the car, and less than 2 minutes up the road, I had literally about 12 narcs, guns drawn, hands tied behind my back. I'm laying out on the ground for about 45 minutes to a complete search and seizure of myself and all of my property. There are times to where the system or various actions by people that are sworn to protect us don't always come out to be positive and or positive experiences. I know without question, because I have law enforcement and firefighters in my direct family, I knew and understood that those actions are not indicative of those that wear that uniform and or serve. I am a product of what it looks like when a community comes together. I say that because without question, the services and various support systems are absolutely needed. The community policing, we need to see more community police officers outside doing the Cupid shuffle with us and understanding how to best connect with us than doing anything opposite or contrary to that particular belief. And as your legislator, I will without question support the community resources and ensure that our police officers and firefighters and rescue personnel have the necessary tools and resources that they need to support us so that as a community, they can support us.
I do want to add one thing. Since we've been elected, crime has continued to decrease in Virginia. But one area that we need to focus on, that I have been focused on over the last few months, is making sure our babies are taken care of when they're reported missing. Too many Black and brown kids are seen as runaways. Their families are told they have to wait. They're given misinformation. We have an alert system that is old and clunky. And I've been directly working with state police and others to fix that. We have to go out and find our babies. When they go missing, they need action in the first 24 hours. And that's an important public safety piece that I wanted to call out.
Thank you so much. So let's stay on public safety, and we'll start with Delegate Cole. Would you continue to support legislation to abolish solitary confinement in Virginia, making it the first Southern state to do so?
Absolutely. I have to give a shout out to Kimberly Snodgrass-Jenkins, who introduced this piece of legislation to me way back in 2020, where I was able to chief co-page the legislation. And I carried the legislation last year, and I think we got the farthest we were able to get, all the way up to the governor's office, only for it to be vetoed. And so I am committed to making sure that we pass that legislation, and we could sit here and talk all day about the statistics that talk about the mental health impacts. We could talk about the social impacts, but it absolutely does impact the psyche of an individual by spending hours in solitary confinement. And so I'm not going to steal her thunder, but Delegate Candi King supported me in that effort as well. She gave me some big support in the committee when we were presenting the bill. But absolutely, I'm committed to that, and I look forward to carrying the legislation again in January. Hallelujah.
Thank you. Yes, some of you know, but I'm married to a law enforcement officer. So it is not just those who are in prison who are harmed by this type of behavior. The human beings who are responsible for caring for individuals, watching people be tortured and deteriorate, it weighs on our law enforcement individuals as well. So I absolutely support abolishing solitary confinement, and I often say in committee that you are supposed to be confined, not tortured. And the second piece is the dogs that are used to maim and permanently harm people. Is abusive to, I say, I know some of y'all care more about dogs than people. It's bad for the dogs too, but it's also bad for the people who are permanently harmed and unable to rehabilitate because dogs are misused to attack people in our system.
Thank you. I'll be short and brief on this one. Unequivocally, without question, I would support. We know that Ms. Kimberly Snodgrass has been doing a phenomenal job in getting that legislation passed, and I will absolutely, once elected, support my future colleague to my right to get that legislation reintroduced and passed and signed into law this coming legislative session.
Thank you. Let's move to healthcare. We'll start with Delegate Mondun King, and you mentioned healthcare a couple times with your work on the Black maternal health, as well as HR 1. So what steps will you take to make healthcare more affordable and accessible for Virginians, particularly in underserved communities?
Thank you for that. So what will happen in the next 12 months is that people will lose premium support that they don't even know about because of the big ugly bill. And so we just left Richmond, yes, it's Wednesday, okay, give me days. We just left Wednesday where Delegate Cole has been leading an effort to figure out how the state will address the rising costs because of the big, beautiful bill. But for me, I'll be focused on ensuring that our budget is meeting the needs and those premiums that are lost that often go to the insurance company and then is passed off to low-income families. So that is issue number one. Two, to back up to the rural communities, 3 rural hospitals have already closed because of the big, beautiful bill. And folks will be looking to our Commonwealth and our taxpayer dollars to fill those gaps in rural communities. But we also have too many care gaps. And so working with whether it's Mary Washington or George Mason and other places to bring affordable care into communities is very important to me. But also one of the things that we worked on with the Omnibus is using emerging technology. So we passed authorization for remote monitoring for pregnant women this past session. We passed budget and legislation for mobile maternity clinics. So there are ways that we can bring care to people, but right now there are just too many barriers.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Carroll next.
So I would say as we look to reduce the cost and or fund the budget gaps that we know is coming from the big, beautiful bill, we have to ensure that everyday impacts we address head on via legislation. So whether that be capping the cost of prescription drugs such as insulin, or whether that's we're working with various agencies at the state level to loosen some of the current restrictions on the providers through their credentialing process without compromising the integrity of that process. I'll give you an example. The nurse anesthesiologist goes through tons of school similar to that of a medical doctor. We know that there's complications with getting some of the nurse anesthesiologists or anesthesiologists in general out to our rural hospitals to perform various surgeries and or procedures. If we know that we have a nurse anesthesiologist that is certified through the state, then why is there a qualification to them also have a medical doctor sign off on that documentation? And I say that from a legislative standpoint. We should reduce and eliminate any specific double tapping of credentials and provide opportunities for rural hospitals and various opportunities to flow easily, to encourage various medical providers to go in some of the rural areas and or stay here in some of the suburban areas, to ensure that as we look toward to fill those budget gaps, we legislate it from a different perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a couple different things. There's so much when we talk about healthcare, right? I'm honored to sit on the Health and Wellness Committee in the House of Delegates. One of the first things I think about is mental health as well. I was honored to pass a bill last year that basically stated that there is a particular exam that was not quite like, it wasn't accepted in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so a lot of Black and brown licensed professional counselors were not able to be qualified in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We passed a law that said that licensure exam was now accepted, and we are now seeing Black and brown licensed professional counselors get qualified to get licensed in the Commonwealth of Virginia so that people can have access to more licensed professional counselors. We also, for the past 2 years in the General Assembly, have passed a prescription drug affordability board to say your prescriptions are too damn high, and we're going to create this board that will regulate the price of your drugs, your prescription drugs, and the governor has vetoed that piece of legislation every single year. And so we have to make sure that that piece of legislation passes with a new governor in the executive mansion, because I'm sure there are people in this audience right now that are robbing Peter to pay Paul in order just to survive because of the prescriptions that your doctor has prescribed to you. And so with everything else coming out of Washington, D.C., where people are poised to lose Medicaid, where someone stated no one in Virginia is going to lose access to their insurance. There are over 300,000 citizens, maybe someone sitting right beside you right now, who is poised to lose their Medicaid. And also on top of that, with the work requirement coming into place, there are people, yes, there may be people who are eligible to work, but the more people who are going to be impacted by this are the people with mental health disabilities, who have mental incapacitations and physical incapacitations, who cannot work, who are going to be forced to lose their health care because of their work requirement. And we have to make sure that the state of the Commonwealth of Virginia, that we're pushing for the waiver, to keep pushing that back as long as we can, so that we continue a way to figure out how we can help our people on their services.
Thank you very much. And let's move to infrastructure. We'll start with Ms. Carroll. How will you prioritize transportation and infrastructure improvements to reduce congestion and improve safety?
Well, I'll be the first one to say that on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, I am utilizing the commuter lanes going up to and from DC. And when I first moved here, I was flabbergasted that there's only 2 ways to get around in Stafford, whether that be 95 and Route 1. I said, what is this, right? And I thought for a minute that what I call hitchhiking, slugging, was the stupidest thing, until I actually drove every day on the regular lanes for about 45 days, and I was like, oh, they figured something out. Maybe I need to get on that bandwagon. I say that because as we, without question, are in an environment to where we need every bridge, highway, and road that's open and accessible. No question, no issue. We have one particular bridge product here in Stafford County that's fully funded for the necessary repairs. We have one that is not. We need to make sure that we're working with our local partners to apply for all of the federal funding that we know that came from the past administration to be able to fix the infrastructure and widen the roads. Again, I love 95 and Route 1. I just want more than 2 options. And I wholeheartedly believe that there are common sense solutions to it, and it doesn't have to be from a political perspective, to where as residents of Stafford County, we can spend more time with our family and not on the highway.
Thank you, Delegate Holt.
I'll celebrate the fact that a couple of years ago I put in a budget amendment that made FXB Go, if you ride, it used to be called Fred Bus System, but FXB Go is now free because of the budget amendment we put in back in 2020 and 2021. So if anyone doesn't drive and you need a way to get around town, you can ride FXB Go for free next to us, you know. But that's right, we do need to expand, and we really want to support multimodal modes of transportation. I have to give a shout out to our U.S. Senators, Mark Warner and Tim Kaine. A couple of years ago, they put in money in the budget to make sure that the Long Bridge connecting Virginia to Washington, D.C. was expanded. And what does that mean for you? probably about 2027, 2028, the VRE will go up and down both ways during the day. Not just up in the morning and down in the evening, but moving up and down, north and south, Monday through Friday, and even on the weekends as well, because now the VRE and Amtrak has a dedicated line to get across the bridge, not just waiting on CSX. We also want to make sure that we're finding out ways to keep our tax money here in the Commonwealth, in the Fredericksburg region. And I've been harping this issue since I've been running about the Regional Transportation Authority. We pay our taxes go to Richmond as it relates to transportation infrastructure, and it takes anywhere from 5 to 6 years before it ever comes back to the Fredericksburg region. The Fredericksburg region is the 3rd fastest growing part of the state, but when it comes to infrastructure costs and projects, we are 5th in the state for prioritization, because when we come to the table, we don't have any money. But if we're able to do a regional transportation authority, we won't have to be Oliver Twist every time we go up to Smart Scale and like, please sir, can we have some more? We'll go to the table with money, and our projects will be able to be ranked higher and faster, and we'll get things done.
Thank you.
I think it's not much more for me to add, but I do want to put something on record. So for the last 2 years, we have worked to cap the cost on the hot lanes. And Ms. Carroll's opponent has voted against it. Well, no, miraculously, election year, we got to vote for it. Okay. Has voted against it, and I've heard every excuse in the world, but the reality is there are people throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia who think that they think everyone in Northern Virginia lives in a McMansion with 3 cars and we ride around like the Jetsons. We know that is not true, and paying $50 and $60 to get back and forth to work is something that we cannot continue to afford. And so I will continue to go back to Richmond to fight to cap the cost of the toll roads, but also look at ways to reimburse. We see what's happening in Hampton Roads to reimburse folks to help people address the high cost of riding 195. Because even though, as I said, we have Route 1, but if you're trying to get home by 6:30 to get a baby from daycare and you get on Route 1, I wish you the best of luck. So we have to address the high cost of tolls that impact Stafford the most.
So for our last question before closing statements, we're going to start with you, Delegate Cole. What is your plan to expand affordable broadband internet access to every household and business in your district?
Somebody might have to fact check me on this one, but my first term we served under the Northam administration, and there were millions of dollars placed into the budget to expand rural broadband. And when the new administration came in, nothing was ever done about that. And so we have to make sure that a new administration comes in so that we can prioritize making sure, keep in mind, these rural communities who voted for this administration are now not being supported by this administration on this particular aspect, on schools and other things like that. And so we have to make sure that the new coming administration supports our rural communities by making sure people have access to rural broadband. And it baffles me. And as I grew up here in Stafford County, I did not know until I ran for office the first time in 2017 that less than 2 minutes around the corner from me, people do not have access to internet. And kids still today, in the year of our Lord 2025, are still sitting in McDonald's parking lots and Starbucks to do their homework. And especially as our schools move forward with virtual learning and Blackboard and different things like that, our kids still don't have access to internet at home. And that's incumbent upon us as a state legislature to make sure that we can support our communities by investing, putting the money there, and then making sure that that infrastructure for high-speed internet and rural broadband is placed and implemented.
Thank you. Delegate Mondun King.
Thank you. I think that, a lot of conversation needs to take place. You want to expand broadband. You have a president in office who has taken our money, who has removed grants. So that means we have to figure it out. That means revenue. That means generation of revenue so that Virginia can meet its own need. Right now, we are being punished, okay? We're being punished because of the way Virginia voted last year in the presidential election. That's why our jobs are being taken and moved to Alabama. Right now, states that did not vote for the president are on punishment. So that means we have to fend for ourselves. And that means we have to educate ourselves. We can say we don't want data centers. Okay, what do we want? We want broadband, but we don't want transmission lines above ground. We don't want them underground. We don't want them in outer space. Where do we want them? Because that is required to expand our broadband and our internet capability. So we have to have conversations as a community about what infrastructure looks like, what developing revenue looks like that is not taking more money out of our pockets.
Or submitted online. The mere fact that we're in 2025 still talking about this disgusts me. And I say that because we don't need any one particular group or segment of our population being left behind for any reason, form, or fashion. That's personal to me because statistically speaking, I wasn't supposed to make it. I had a son, got pregnant when I was a junior in high school. That son now is a junior at Morehouse College. When we come together as a community and support the least of these to be able to get ahead, we all benefit. So as we talk about where we're going, and specifically the issue of broadband, I am overly for, and again, the how, and the devil is always in the details. Now, how we do it, whether it be like as my Delegate Mondun King said, whether it's overhead, underground, various things, absolutely open to have that conversation and find the best form, fit, or solution. But from a state perspective, we need to ensure that all kids in the Commonwealth of Virginia, specifically Stafford, are not left behind in a digital age to where everything from general news, social media, and various things are at, in some cases, our fingertips with our cell phones. No child should be in a disadvantaged situation when we have the power to legislate the difference.
Thank you. So now we'll move to closing statements and start with Delegate Mondun King, 3 minutes each.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here today. There aren't many of them, but we are two of the fortunate people who represent multiple localities. And sometimes it is so difficult to be in 2 places at one time. Almost impossible, but we make it happen. So I'm so grateful for every opportunity to be in Stafford County and to engage with you all. I will just close with this. Someone told me recently that I was a middle manager legislator. And first I was offended. And then I thought about it and I was very proud because middle managers get things done. And that's what I've done in Richmond. And if I have to bring the leadership with the freshmen or the lobbyists with this person or the data centers and the energy companies, I do that. And I take the heart and the needs of our community with me everywhere that I go. So if this community reelects me, I will continue to take that heart and that energy, and I will work with everyone, but I will play with no one. I don't play when it comes to my community. I don't play when it comes to people who have often been left out of conversations, whose experience have not been considered in the legislative process. We are here now, and I bring each and every one of you with me. So my door is always open. I am fully focused on the future of the Commonwealth and what that looks like, especially related to our health care, our energy prices, and the general cost of living, which is too high. So I hope that I can gain your support and go back to Richmond and represent our community.
Thank you. Delegate Cole.
Thank you once again, Madam President, and the members of the Stafford NAACP and the Fredericksburg Area League of Women Voters. Thank you so much for hosting this forum. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Delegate Joshua Gregory Cole. I am blessed to represent the 65th House District after representing the 28th House District, and I'm excited to get back to work. A couple of years ago, a rapper by the name of Bone Crusher introduced a song called We Ain't Never Scared. And despite what's coming out of Washington, D.C., whether you are poised to lose your job, whether you are poised to lose your health care, we just stopped by here, 60 Susa Drive, to let you know, we ain't never scared. Whether you are poised to lose the person you love, or your rights are being threatened because of the color of the skin, where you came from, or the language you speak, We just want to stop by here to let you know, we ain't never scared. And you have a fighter in the three of us. When we get down to Richmond, we don't die, we multiply. And we will continue to hold up the banner for Lottie Dottie and everybody to make sure that everyone is respected, heard, and has a voice in Richmond. Because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so with Delegate Joshua Cole, with Delegate Candi Mondun King, with Delegate Stacy Carroll in Richmond representing each and every one of us, you no longer are on the menu. You are at the table because you have people who are fighting for you, who are supporting you, and those who are closest to pain need to be closest to the power. And wherever I go, you go. And I'm continuing to fight for my county, my community, Stafford County, Virginia. Thank you so much, and I look forward to having your support and winning re-election on November the 4th. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll.
My name is Stacy Carroll, and I will remind you, I'm not here to play politics. Over my entire life of service, I have been simply doing government. Government, auditing the federal government's financial statements. I have been doing government, serving my community as a foster mom, specifically teens. And I have been doing government as a member of the National Guard. With over 5 mobilizations, I had enough. I love this country. Anybody that doesn't stand to represent who we are, to be and encourage everybody to be the best of who we are, does not represent us and needs to go home. We have to ensure that we support each other from the side, from the back, and from the bottom up. I'm not here to play politics, whether you support the R or the D or the independent or you're just unsure. I challenge you to get involved in this coming election. A lot of times we get drowned out by what's going on up the street at 1600 Pennsylvania, but I would remind everybody in this room that 70% of all issues that we face on a daily basis can be addressed between state and local government. Madam President, in the Stafford County branch of the NAACP has provided a forum for everybody to see who the candidates are and what we stand on. I challenge you all to get involved. And I say this because, again, I'm a CPA, so I always got some quotes. This past June, we had a primary. In Stafford County, there's 122,000 registered voters. 7,000 people showed up. Of that vote, it was split 51-49. 3,600 people decided for Stafford County. I just asked everybody, where was the other 100,000? We can't afford to sit out, not have a voice, and be part of it. I personally got tired of fussing at the TV on what I saw to be un-American and decided to do something about it. No, I wasn't born and raised in Stafford County. I actually moved here a little less than 10 years ago. I chose Stafford County when I was stationed at the Pentagon. I chose to make Stafford County my home. Stafford County loved me and my family to life, and I intend to serve and ensure that the love that Stafford County gave me and to my family, which is why we've been in the area since the early 2000s, continue to be the Stafford for our families for generations to come.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carroll. So before we close, I have a few questions for the audience. So who learned something new today, whether it was about the legislature, a candidate's position? Excellent, very good. And when is the first day of early absentee voting?
September 19th.
Excellent. And when is election day? Very good.